All right, so welcome to lesson 1. This is the dichotomy of control.
The dichotomy of control is the central principle of the philosophy of Stoicism and focuses on looking at what's within our control within a situation and what's not. Epictetus, writing 2,000 years ago, said, happiness begins with one clear principle, focusing on what's within our control. And so that's simply what Stoicism teaches. I like to call this the IKEA principle. If you were to go to IKEA, and you were in a busy queue and you're walking along and there's little children running into you, as happened to me last week, and you were there thinking, oh, why is this happening, so on and so forth, I'm naturally going to be unhappy. However, if I go with the mindset that I'm going to focus on what's within my own control, not other people's actions, then I can keep my tranquility, not worry about the noises that are going on outside at the moment, and move forward and be happy. And that's the simple idea. And we've got some worksheets for you to focus on this. Epictetus, of course, was writing 2,000 years ago, but it's amazing to see how Stoic philosophy is mirrored in many of the greatest productivity books of the modern era.
So, for example, in Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is one of the world's best-selling productivity books, he kind of talks about this idea of circles of influence. And we'll show a diagram over here of what he's talking about. He kind of talks about how people are either proactive or reactive. Reactive people would be the sorts of people who would focus too much on things outside of their control. For example, in your IKEA example, a reactive person would be like, oh my God, I can't believe these damn kids are kind of roaming around, and it would really let it affect their own tranquility. Whereas a proactive person would focus only on stuff that's actually within their control, and they would therefore have a more tranquil, more productive, more happy, more healthy, and more meaningful life, because you're not wasting brain space and stress worrying about the stuff that you can't control. And then, for example, if you were to read the book Happy by Derren Brown, which is one of my favorite books, which is sort of an introduction to Stoicism, but he kind of expands on some of the teachings. He talks about how actually, if we really think about what's within our control and what isn't, there are only 2 things that can possibly be within our control, and that's our own thoughts and our own actions. And practically everything else is at least partially outside of our control. And so there's so many examples in life where we're tempted to kind of get upset by the fact that we didn't get the grades or that someone beat us in that competition. But all of these things are not within our control. All we can control is our own thoughts and our own actions. And if we focus only on those, then life becomes a lot less stressful.
Absolutely. And Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, writing 2,000 years ago, regularly writes to himself in his journal, the Meditations, that he needs to remember to focus on what's within his control. And we could do well to take that advice. So the Stoics say, it's all good knowing things, but how does it actually apply to your life? And so what we've got is a great worksheet for you, and this has been really helpful for me. What you do is it's got a table for you, and it's got a section for particular situations that you face in daily life. So I gave you the example of when I went to IKEA and had people bumping into me, and I would put situation, went to IKEA. I was really frustrated by what was going on. So I just put a brief description of the situation. And then what I would do is I'd also have the date so we can track these situations and how our thoughts improve over time. There'll be 2 simple columns. One for analyzing the elements of a situation within your control, and the other for the elements outside of your control. And actually, whilst it sounds simple, when you get it down on a piece of paper and you're able to actually analyze what it is that you were thinking, it really allows you to clarify the small things that you allow to disturb your tranquility. So it's a really, really powerful tool, and I hope it's useful for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of the whole point of doing these worksheets is that at the start, if you're not familiar with Stoicism, or if you don't just by default think in this way already, what we kind of need to do is we need to rewire our brains into thinking in a certain way. And this is actually the basis for cognitive behavioral therapy, as we've talked about. It's kind of based on the more we practice certain thought processes, the more they become natural. And there's a phrase in neuroscience, which is axons that fire together, wire together. So like, if the bits of the brain, if you make them fire together more and more and more often, they will end up kind of permanently wiring together. And so for me, anytime now I get into any kind of situation where I feel like my tranquility is disturbed, I will just think, okay, what's in my control, what's not in my control? And it will just be an almost automatic thought process, which is why I almost never have kind of serious negative emotions, because it's always related to things that are outside of my control. So the worksheet is for practicing this, and then hopefully over time it becomes a natural habit. So thank you for watching this video about the dichotomy of control, and we'll see you in the next one for principle number 2.